Welcome to Andorian Guitar Works Backstage, a guided look at the life, the experiences, and the ways and means of the guitarist journey. I am Matt Ackerman.
Brian McCoy. It is July 12th, and we're here with you a little bit later than normal, but that's all good. You'll be very happy once we get into things. But right now...
very happy.
Very happy, I think so.
Yeah.
We've been having a great conversation in lead up to the episode. But first, we wanted to kind of round some edges on the last episode with Wood Spirit Guitars, Builder John
Beeson of Wood Spirit Guitars. If you caught last week's episode, you saw that great interview where we talked to him about what he's building and where he started and how he started his journey. Calls me up a couple days after the broadcast and says, "Are you going to be at home on such and such a day?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure. I'm bringing you something to take a look at." Like, okay. So, dude is up early. That guy's a worker. He was down at 6 o'clock on a job site and shot me a text message at 7:30 in the morning. Stopped over at 7:30 in the morning and dropped off. Go back and watch this episode because there was a gray semi-hollow hanging in the back that this guy was drooling over.
His junior is just... Oh.
He comes over, drops off this guitar and says, "I want you to play it, or I want you to set it up, and I want you to make some videos, if you don't mind." I said, yeah, but I'm going to have to hold Brian in suspense here. So
I was surprised when I came over this evening for the show.
I'm a royal asshole. I sent him a text message, and I said, some customer brought over this totally beat to shit guitar. I think I'm in over my head. You got to come over here and take a look at this thing. So Brian comes over, and I point to the kitchen table. I said, go look at this.
Open it up. I'm just like, dude, are you fucking kidding me? Like, what is this? So it's exciting to have that guitar just nearby. It's gorgeous.
In the next couple of weeks, we'll be putting out some videos of just jamming on this guitar because we need to give it some love. Oh my goodness! Totally. And then, sort of in the spirit of working on guitars, I have been super busy. A level below this, finishing off my guitar shop. Which will be operational by August. So 2 more weeks, and it will be actually a dedicated space for all the Luthrie. I don't have to share a kitchen table to do all the guitar work.
or the coffee table.
I just don't feel good putting tacos right next to guitars. But for today, we have something very special.
Yeah, my good buddy and someone I've worked with before. My brother and I had a record label several years ago, and one of the first groups that we worked with was Moss Generator. So tonight we have Tony Reed coming on to join us. Hi, Tony.
How you doing?
So Tony and I have been in contact with each other directly for the better part of the last 2 decades now, almost. It's been about 15 years. We started the record label in 2008, and the first thing we put out was that yellow black splatter 7-inch.
Step Up with God Hand Iommi on those.
I still love that record. I throw it on every once in a while. Gotta hear that. And then we did a double.
I got some info about that whenever we get to that.
Oh, we will get to that.
Okay, good.
And then we also put out double LP for you. But I mean, Tony has been working in so many different bands. So really, I mean, that's kind of where we wanted to start. Welcome to Backstage. Why don't you tell us a little bit about some of the bands that you've been in over the years and some of the stuff that you're currently doing? Because you are prolific.
I would consider myself a prolific writer, yes. And hi, how are you doing? Moss Generator is what's kind of occupying my main space right now as far as working on another record. We haven't put out a full studio album since Shadowlands, and that was 2018, even though there's been some EPs and some, like some 12-inch EPs and some reissues and stuff like that. Since then, this is the first album we've done. Since that's a double album. So I got that going on. I got a country rock outfit called Hot Spring Water. So it's a country rock slash kind of southern southern rock, alt country type thing, and it was formed out of the ashes of this band Stone Axe that I had, which was around 2008 to 2011, I think, and out of that we formed this band to kind of also fulfill a craving for like a 70s style country southern rock thing.
And that, by the way,
Big Scenic
Stone Axe is like one of the best 70s kind of revival sounds, I think.
Well, that's a whole other episode if we want to talk about how those were recorded, because they were recorded very, very interestingly and brave old techniques, a lot of old techniques from the 60s and 70s.
We should definitely hit that for sure on another episode, get a little deeper into that, but please continue.
Okay, so Big Scenic Nowhere is another outfit I'm working on. That's with Bob from Fu Manchu and Gary and Bill from Yawning Man.
Okay.
And then we have all kinds of guests come in. You know, people from Queens of the Stone Age, pair from Opeth and Spiritual Beggars, and many other. That guy's an amazing keyboard player. We've had, Dan from Voivod.
Oh wow.
Like, which was for me was okay, I'm totally stoked. Reeves Gabriel's was on a tune, and which I played one of his guitars, a Reverend Reeves Gabriel's. He was in Tin Machine with Bowie, and he's in The Cure.
Nice.
And so and there's other people from The Well, other people, there's people all over these records. We make them, which we might get into a little later about how we make them, and then we just have people come in. It's a really interesting process that I'm really stoked to be a part of, because it's different than my usual process. Right. Of course, I've done tons of solo stuff, which I do regularly, and records get released, different things here and there, and so that's always fun, just to continue to be productive as a solo artist, doing all the instruments and all that stuff. There's 1230 Dreamtime, which is a band that I had in the 90s, which ended up being the first incarnation of Moss Generator. We probably wrote 60 or 70 songs throughout the 90s, and now we're back playing again, rehearsing and working on material from a certain era.
Which that's why we're running a little later tonight, was because we wanted to make accommodations for Tony to be able to get back home from rehearsal from 1230 Dream Pop. So.
I would say that Tony made accommodations for us, and we thank you for that.
to just be on the air with us. Yeah, you're probably right.
And that I'm using such a great combo of guitar and amp that I wasn't sure was going to work, and now I'm so happy with it. But that's the gear segment.
Yeah. We once, when Tony started his Zoom connection with us and we saw the wall of amps, we were like, well, do we squeeze this in, or do we do a show part 2? So I think we're gonna hybridize that and do both.
Yes.
We could definitely do
around the studio. I've got a lot of equipment.
Yeah.
And then Constance Tomb is another project I'm in the middle of, which was the first album was put out by DHU, and it was all songs that I wrote in 1988. And it was in the kind of a goth, real Christian Death, Bauhaus, and even some Sam Hain. Some people they hear early TSOL and stuff like that. So that I re-recorded songs and put them up, and then it got released. Like, hey, can we put this out? So now I'm working on a second record of material from the same year. I wrote tons of songs that year, so or that in that era. So that's coming out, and then there's the last of the real. I'm doing more than this, but these are the things that are holding up in my schedule. There's a band called Woodrot, and that was from 95, 96, and it's an experimental kind of sludgy metal. Mm-hmm. It's like a mix between, like Sabbath and Fear Factory, or something weird. Yeah. It's like and I play drums in that, and a lot of my really close friends from the area were writing that, and they just had me coming on drums and producing the record. So I can really look at it in a different way, because I wasn't the writer. So of course I can talk way better about it than my own stuff, because I wasn't the songwriter.
Right.
That's getting reissued, and since that's not reissued, these recordings a lot of them have never been released. So seeing this come out, and also I remixed all of it and tried to get it as cool as possible. It's everything, and then we're going to play some shows. And so
nice.
It'll be interesting to see how I play this full-fledged, metal stuff as a 53-year-old.
Hence the new drum kit, right?
Yes, I got a new drum set last week. I'm very excited.
Nice.
So I want
to.
That's all of really what's going on. I mean, of course, there's other tribute records that have just come out. There's a bunch of reissues coming out this year. Like there's a couple of Moss Generator issues and reissues.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the Hot Spring Water record. There's a second one coming out, and we're about ready to record the third one. And we're in the middle of recording the Big Scenic Nowhere record. And as a solo artist, I'm always recording.
Dang.
So there's that, And then the Dream. I'm trying to get this out there. The Dreamtime, there's 2 volumes of our 90s work already released on vinyl and CD over the last few years. Now there's a 3rd volume. That's why we're playing and rehearsing again, because we'll go out and play that era this time. Every time we release a volume or somebody releases a volume, we go out and play only that era.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Now we're playing 94 to 96.
Are you guys speaking of 1230 Dreamtime, and you guys, that group that became Moss Generator, you guys were just together playing a few shows for the anniversary of your first album. That was
the
killer.
First Moss record.
Yeah.
Those were really interesting.
It was a lot of fun.
Play those songs that
tell the stories.
Because the first Moss record was in 2002. We formed in 2000, and we haven't. Those songs have been out of the set list for many years. So playing the whole record was super fun.
It was a lot of fun to see and hear some of the stories around the songs. And all that kind of stuff. It's great.
So I want to take a real quick break here, just because we're talking about getting our music out there. There's a good chunk of people watching right now, and I want to remind folks watching that if you click that little paper airplane in the corner of Instagram Live and share this video live to anyone who's out there watching right now that you think might want to watch this episode, please do that.
Just shoot it away.
Just shoot it away.
Throw it,
man.
So we have a question coming up next here that I was excited to ask this before we started talking. But when we were meeting before the show, you mentioned sort of your philosophy, make music daily. And I think that this is important. And it leads me to the question of, when did you first decide that you were going to live the rock and roll life? And how did you make that connection?
Well, I think the dream started earlier than the reality. The dream started probably in 1978 or 77 when I heard Kiss Alive. That's when I'm like, okay, all this other race car fireman stuff, that's done. Yeah. Now I want to play, and then I want to play guitar.
Right.
I want to be a rock musician. I was always interested in music, though, as a child. I collected records before that. My parents were big into music, and they introduced me to things that have stuck with me through most of my life. But then at 9 years old, I had made that decision. Of course, I grew up in a really remote part of the country that just you couldn't really get stuff. You couldn't get instruments. You'd have to, you could, but I just didn't know how at 9. So I didn't pick up a guitar until I was 12 or 13. I didn't get my hands on one.
Okay.
And Iron Man was the first song that I ever learned.
Nice.
And I remember the day I showed my mom. I was all excited. But and then I had met what would be my early colleague and musical companion. He was a soulmate musically. When I was 13, we went through high school playing music together in a band, and he was such a talent and an inspiration to me. We both kind of bounced things off each other, and so from 13 to 16 or 17, we made a lot of music together, which I've recorded. I got recordings from when I was 10.
Nice.
I've recorded almost everything that anytime I ever was going to make music, I tried to record it in one way or another.
And that's some of that stuff that's going in your catalog that you're working on right now too, right?
Yeah, I'm working on a huge dump down of every cassette that I've ever done, every piece of music I've ever recorded, and that's already close to like a year of and I'm still on just 2-track and 4-track cassettes of my, not that's all awesome. The other types of, reel-to-reel tapes, ADAT tapes, right. Mixes. So that's really 13 years old was the big thing.
Yeah.
And then so through school you try to do it. And then I moved here. Mm-hmm. I moved to Port Orchard when I was 18 but knew nobody and had to kind of start over with playing music. And that didn't take long. I found people that I connected with almost immediately.
Yeah.
And and some of those people I still play music with over like almost 40 plus years or 30 plus years later.
Nice.
And so
you really have found that community around.
Yeah, and I've moved around, I've brought people in, I've gone to other communities, that kind of stuff to try to keep it, to try to make music daily.
Yeah. That's awesome.
And that's a theme that life can kind of take you and put you in not force you, but to do the right thing, you have to go into a different direction. You can't be so dedicated when you have a child.
Right.
Say you have responsibility to that you've agreed to by having a child. So you take that responsibility through I have a son, and through his growing up, I slowed down on music, but still owned a recording studio.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I still had a job in music, and I still played, but I didn't put my focus so much on that. And then when he was old enough to be able to kind of, take care of himself and it to be something that was easier to go out and do, then I found myself out on the road a lot.
We have a question here from Nikki in Olympia that okay. she's curious why that at such a young age you felt compelled to start recording. I guess I would add to that, like, did you know, like, so early? Did it feel right, or did it feel like something you just thought you were supposed to do, or that was just the logical next step? Or what made you at 13 start hitting record? I remember when I was 13, I plugged into my dad's dual cassette, his tower system dual, and I noticed that as soon as I hit record, that's when my playing went to shit. I could play this, and it was like, I didn't even know. As soon as I hit the record button, there was something up here that said, now it falls apart, and at 13, you just knew that it was time to record. So
yeah, well, I think it was just to try to, we were writing, the players I was with, we were writing, and it needed to be captured to me. So I captured a lot of that, and from what I understand, my colleague Damon Inkle, actually his dad wrote In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida. He was an Iron Butterfly.
Oh, huh.
The bass player that I used to play with, his dad was an Iron Butterfly, and I heard that around school because I was already an Iron Butterfly fan. To be honest, when I was a little kid, that song used to scare the shit out of me. When Eric Braun goes into all that crazy, those noises in the middle. Those weird guitar noises, these used to scare me.
Yeah.
And anyway, someone said, "Hey, there's this kid and his dad was an Iron Butterfly." So I'm like, "Okay, where's this dude?"
Yeah.
Because I'm already a fan, and I just picked up a guitar. He was a stellar musician at 13 or 14. He had the gift. Yeah. His dad didn't live where we lived. His dad still lived in California, San Diego area. But anyway, so I felt like I needed to record that. And Damon has all these journals that he wrote. I've read some of them in the last few years, but I still need to go make copies. But he has journals of everything we're doing. He's like, dude, I remember when you used to splice tapes. I was splicing cassettes to put things together and doing and editing and stuff, even when I was 13 or 14 years old. And I just felt compelled because I needed to try to be like what I listened to. I wanted to, I started actually experimenting with miking instruments and trying to somewhat multi-track with two-track cassette decks and stuff when I was a teenager. These were concepts that I just
experimenting. This
should work. It should be possible. So it just came from necessity, especially growing up in Port Angeles or Joyce, Washington, where there were no recording studios and we couldn't afford it anyway. So it was out of necessity that I needed to figure out the best placement of this boombox.
Yeah.
For where we're going to record.
Well, necessity is the mother of invention.
I have 3 microphones, 3 Radio Shack microphones, and a set of headphones. I can put the headphones in the kick drum, and get a bass drum, and then put these 3 mics in the room and run them through a PA system. And there's all kinds of weird things that I experimented with.
Tips and
tricks.
tricks.
Some of my earliest multi-tracking stuff, I still have those tapes.
Nice.
Where we were trying to sound, my band was trying to sound like Fate's Warning, or one of these progressive Queensryche, or one of these progressive metal bands. And that's what we were trying to do when I was young, was this kind of progressive metal stuff,
Nice. Well,
that'd be 15 years old.
This kind of leads into another question that we wanted to bring up, that you're between your solo projects and all the bands that you've been in over the years and are currently in, there's so many different styles and genres. I mean, you're kind of all over the board. I've been curious for years, like how you identified your sound and how you found that, and would love to hear more about some more of your influences. Obviously, we've listed a whole bunch so far, but if you got any other influences.
Well, the real influences, the basic influences, of course, would be Ace Frehley or from Kiss.
Right.
As a guitar player, Kiss as a band, of course. The next big one was Sabbath. And these are like 10, 11, 12 years old, 13 years old. And then the basic 3 that I build my whole guitar playing on is Ace Frehley, Tony Iommi, and Alex Lifeson from Rush. So anytime I'm going to do an odd solo, it's probably Alex's fault.
Right.
Anytime something's not going to be in a blues scale. Of course, throughout the years, things have gone through all kinds. I went through tons of phases, and there wasn't many musicians that could keep up with my hunger for music. I would change almost every few months. I would be, and these are like in my mid to late teens, I would be finding things. All of a sudden, I'm trying to play No Means No meets Funkadelic. And whoever's with me is going, "What are you doing, man? It's not like we can't do this," but they just didn't understand.
Right.
My hunger, and that came on pretty early. Like the first band, when I'm talking about playing that progressive metal with my friends, with Damon and all them, I remember vividly going, "I want to play You Got Lucky" from Tom Petty, and they were like, it just come out, and they were like, "What? No, we can't. We're not into that kind of junk at all." I'm like, later. And I went and found musicians that were willing, that they might have been less talented, but they were willing to play anything that I felt like playing.
Right.
Yeah.
And they were also willing to just, okay, we need to jam an E for 40 minutes so I can work on. They didn't care.
Yeah.
They were just willing to play whatever. And so that would have been around 1985 or 86. And then I just started to really explore many different styles. And during that time, it was a punk. I got into hardcore and punk rock, and I got into goth a lot. And the style of Rick Agnew or Valor from Christian Death or Daniel Ash from Bauhaus. I mean, all these guys had a completely different style than what I was into. So listening to that, but at the same time, I had discovered King Crimson.
Right.
And I discovered what Robert Fripp, and the first Crimson I heard was Indiscipline, and that was Robert Fripp and Adrian Belew, and I was blown away by those things. And then all of a sudden I tried to incorporate that. And then of course I went backwards in the King Crimson catalog and just got into this, really in the 70s. I would say Fripp's, although I can't play anywhere near his style, I think his philosophy on music is a big thing for me. I see him as the ultimate musician.
Nice.
And King Crimson are in my top 4 favorite bands of all time.
Right on.
You got Kiss, Rush, Bowie, and King Crimson. I mean, no, Kiss, Sabbath. Sorry,
that's
Rush,
okay.
Bowie, King Crimson, kind of roll in that same thing.
All in that cat box together.
but during my early preteen years, I was going through many changes, and during this dumping down of cassettes, you can hear how that's happening as I'm dumping down these cassettes, not in chronological order because I'm kind of pulling them out of these massive amounts of boxes full of cassettes, but I'm trying to keep eras intact.
Right.
When I'm doing it, and you hear me going through all kinds of stuff.
Well,
and that's from my friends, though. Friends have introduced me, friends, brothers, my cousin, all kinds of people introducing me to things.
Right on.
Just a sponge,
I can't.
And I still am like that, actually. I discovered something the other day, a Fred Neil record, and he was this folk singer from the 60s. And I'm awestruck by this. What I heard was this cassette I'd got in this pile of cassettes. And it was a radio show from '85, kind of talking about it. The DJ was going through stuff after each side of a record and talking about what he did, and all of a sudden I'm into this dude.
Yeah.
And what can I use from this guy's sound now at this point in my life? It's such a great thing to be open to that.
Yeah, I mean, and it sounds like, from what I know of you and the music that you make, and I mean, you're so all over the place. You got so many different influences. It's really, it's amazing. You can hear the different influences in one group, and then you can also take one thing you're doing and you can hear a single influence very clearly as well. And it's really interesting. We'd like to kind of move on to show some of your music.
Okay.
We're going to start with video from Moss Generator, Cat's Paw, I think.
Okay.
Start in with that, kind of show that this is from... Was this the first record with Sean Booth and Jono?
This is the first record with the current lineup. And it was something that I demoed and put on a 12-inch before this, and then we re-recorded it for this. And this is one of my favorite Moss songs. Right. And I know that the video was done by Chris and Brian Matthews, and they made, now this might be completely doable, but when they made this video, they had to do it frame by frame through an app.
Really?
It took days for them to render this video.
Damn.
And they worked. I mean, Chris has done a lot of videos for us, and I always, what he's done, like I said, it might be now, that might be something you could do pretty easy, but they worked really hard on this and captured a really cool energy of us just performing the song, in a performance style video.
Yeah.
But it's one of my favorites. It's still challenging to play live, and it still represents what I want, the direction that Moss is going.
Right
even
on.
a couple of albums ago.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, let's kick it off. I think this was the first time that I had heard something from Moss that was kind of this almost mathy, like it's got this, the off, not 4/4, not 2, it's not straight ahead at all. It was really kind of a new sound for Moss at the time.
Well, I think that when I moved on from the original rhythm section, I was able to introduce more of what I enjoy about writing music.
Yeah.
And being diverse. I was able to introduce that, and it starts to show up on Abyssinia, the record that this is from.
Yeah, when I was listening to this for the first time, I swear I could hear Rush influences.
Yeah.
But I hadn't talked to Tony yet, and for you to say that Rush was an influence, it's there. Major
influence. I mean,
and I know we have a couple Rush fans watching.
Rush are the second. Rush are in second in line to Sabbath, and sometimes that's reversed.
Yeah. I love that you get that breakdown before the chorus too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
not always easy to play live.
No, I'd imagine not, especially with the counts.
I started quite a bit quicker.
Yeah.
Too. When you're that live energy.
Oh yeah.
You start going. And Jono's drumming on is amazing, and Booth's playing that bass line.
Yeah.
When we're locked in, it's pretty. Sometimes when we're hitting it, I can be on stage going, "This is impressive." You know what I mean? I mean, that's weird to say, but sometimes you're like, "Man,
there's something about the chemistry."
It's going well. Yeah.
And it's cool too. Like the musicians that you're playing with they're just as diverse musically in their own minds as you are. I know Jono's playing in like a death metal band in Texas. He's now playing with Speed Dealer, coming up here on their tour with Super Suckers. I mean,
yeah, that dude.
Booth's been around the block.
That dude's a musician.
Yeah,
he's so dedicated to his instrument, like me. So that's how we get along so well. Like I see that dedication to learning more about his instrument and how to actually capture it.
Yeah,
he's been really working on how to record his drums and what it means to record, what it means to hit a drum and make it sound right when it's being recorded. There's an art to that.
Yeah,
and that's
sure.
not just hitting a drum. There's a whole bunch of factors involved in a really good studio drum.
Yeah, from the room to the drum.
I don't come across very many really well-crafted studio drums.
Yeah.
That know exactly what, in live you can bash it out, but in the studio there's a different thing happening.
Yeah, for sure.
But he does want to destroy his drums on stage, and that is a plus when I'm standing in front of him.
Yeah.
I love it.
Well,
and Booth, and Sean's Booth was a fan well before.
Oh yeah, of course.
The band. So when I called him to ask if he wanted to join, that was one of those weird moments. And he still says really kind things to me even now after we've been through so much touring.
Yeah.
He still says really kind things about being in the band,
Yeah.
That's a great video. What year did that one come out, Tony?
2016, I think.
2016. Yeah, that's so, showing my cards just a little bit, but as I've been preparing over the last week to put the tech together for this show, that's the first audio cut, and so I've heard like the first 15 seconds to that tune over and over and over. It didn't even take but a day for it to be like the tune I hear in the middle of the night. I'm like, I got to go listen to that.
Yeah.
It's so good. I was just like,
thank you very much.
Man, it's one of those happy accidents. I mean, you hear good music every day, and that's. I mean, if you're living life right, you should be hearing good music every day, and you just never know when the one's going to hit you that's going to mean something. And I dig that one.
The next time you're over at my house, I'll bust out the cream-colored vinyl and play that album.
Yeah, it's that's top 5 Moss Generator songs for me as a writer. And I can look at it as a fan. I actually release my music and put enough behind it that because I'm such a fan of myself, of records and liner notes and collecting, that I put that out there as if I was a fan of my own music, putting it out to people.
Mm-hmm.
I treat it like that. I treat it like it's something that I am listening to and liking.
Right.
Although when I finish a record, I rarely listen to. I can't handle it anymore.
Yeah.
I've already spent enough time writing it, recording it, and then mixing it, mastering it, and getting ready and doing the artwork layout usually.
Yeah.
And by the time I get that, I don't want to ever touch it again. I don't want
done with it.
To do with it.
So when you're engineering one of your records, and I'm asking this, I'm throwing Brian for a curve here, but I also see that one of the folks watching here is a big production guy, and he kind of talked about this in some of his Instagram videos a few days back. But sort of like the how long do you have to walk when you think you've got something where it's at and like this is ready? I always say you gotta leave and you gotta come back, whether it's a day later or an hour later or even a week later, so that you come back and hear it with fresh ears. Is that something that you have found like in time? Does that period of time get shorter, or do you still recommend like walk away from it and come back, or is it mood influenced? I mean, how do you overcome that?
Well, sometimes it's deadline influence.
Well, yeah.
I have a deadline.
Okay.
I try to make my own deadlines, and nowadays I've made my release career less deadline influenced on my own, but I make my own deadlines. I do like to walk away, and I do like the car listening.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm driving with this. What can I do with this mix?
Right.
Because you listen to so much. I mean, that's a typical thing in the engineering world or whatever, to listen to stuff. Should be in the car.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you got
So there has to be that, and that's not even listening. It's like, what can I add or take away from this?
Right.
What is going to work? You know, because there's a lot of taking away a lot of the time.
Yeah.
So a lot of times you throw everything into the mix, and then you start to pull it back and go, okay, you know.
Yeah.
The new Moss record is almost like I'm throwing everything in there, but figuring out how to make it fit, not necessarily taking anything away.
Yeah.
There's a lot, you know, and Brian, you're familiar with Late Great Planet Earth.
Oh, it's one of my favorites.
Which is just dense with massive amounts of overdubs.
Yeah.
Unplayable live as a 3-piece.
Right. I mean, it's Pink Floydy. I mean, it's just huge.
The new album is like that, but not in the same musical way.
Okay.
It's dense with overdubs, but it doesn't sound like Moss Generation. It doesn't sound like Late Great Planet Earth at all. But it is, when you get done listening to it, it is something that you're taxed by at the end. Like when you finish Late Great, you are taxed. It's taking everything out. If you listen to it from start to finish, you're like, you know.
I love to myself,
you know,
and that's my walking music.
Yeah.
Like I go walk around the lake. Spend 45 minutes walking and listening to Late Great, and I'm just like, that was a great meditation for me, you know.
I'm glad you think that. I appreciate that.
It's an escape.
And the new album has that with so many different layers.
Yeah.
It's moving around so much. We finished the demos for the new Moss record. So Jono came up twice last summer, and he happened to come up when it was what, 110 or 111 outside. We're in this jam room trying to so God. He came up for 2 10-day sessions. I think it was like June and August, and we literally walked into the jam room 9 to 5 every day for days in a row, 9 to 5. You know, I had AC, but they would walk in. Sean and Jono would come in, and I would say, "Here's what I've done. Here's what I have ready for us to work on." Like, I have some riffs, I have some ideas. Some things were even from 30 years ago.
Right.
I'm using riffs from some of my old music. We would complete a demo each day from its inception to the end of the day. We would finish a song every day.
Dang.
Wow.
That's
okay,
work. That's
now I've taken the last almost year to finish demos for 3 albums worth of material, right?
Right.
Now we're cutting it down. We've cut it down to 2 albums and a companion album, right? So a double album. So I get everything done. I record all the demos like it was an album. Everything is recorded precise with all the tones I wanted. All the vocals are there. Then we go, you know what? No need to re-record.
Nice.
We're using these fucking demos as a record, right? Of really complex songs, you know, from 8, 9 to 14, 15 minutes of, you know, a really complex material. But we've decided that we're just going to keep the demos. So that's what I'm kind of going through now, is making these demos sound like they were intentional album. Because part of the problem was when we were writing and going through, we're writing and recording these demos like in one day. Well, Jono wasn't wearing headphones, and we're playing live in the room quietly, so that there's no bleed. Luckily during these demos, I mic'd the drums as if I was going to make a record.
Right.
You know, all the toms, ride cymbal, hi-hats, bottom snare, the whole thing. But we're playing quietly, which means Jono's playing not like he wants to turn this drum set into splinters.
Right.
Right. So I have to, in turn, in the mix, make this drum set like it sound like he's trying to turn it into splinters. So that's where I'm at now.
Okay.
We do have an, and artwork. I mean, the concept like we talked about earlier, that it was about the passing of time,
right,
about using your life to its maximum.
Yeah.
Don't be fooled that you have any time whatsoever.
Yeah. Take advantage of
Any
today.
extra time.
Yeah.
Do make music daily. Take advantage of everything that comes along your way, and don't waste. And that's the whole album. It's another concept, which is odd that it doesn't sound like late grade, but it does have this density and this concept throughout.
Make music daily. Absolutely.
Right.
Make music daily.
We're gonna keep coming back to that, because that's just that's gold. Yeah.
I do it. I get up in the AM and early, and I come in here and I make music every day.
Yeah.
Some days it's better than others, and sometimes it's more productive. Or I'm working.
Yeah.
I'm working with a client, or whatever, mixing a record, mastering a record, whatever it may be, or working on my own stuff. But I do it every day.
Nice.
And
that's the important
sometimes taking
thing.
a day off is weird.
Yeah. It's like your routine is to make music. If you take a day off from it.
I know other people with routines.
Yeah.
I understand them. There's
right.
So, but I see that as a 53-year-old, I see that I have urgency.
Yeah.
Involved.
Yeah.
There's so much I want to do. I know that exists in here, and whatever I'm trying to do. There's so much still there.
Right. Well, and that you also, along with Moss Generator, because you have so much there, you're also working with some other local guys. We've seen in other bands like Sower and Stone Axe with Hot Spring Water. We've got another video to bring up of that. See how what you're progressing in that direction, because that's more of a country rock theme than the.
And that's a wonderful, like I said, that was earlier. That was a break off of Stone Axe.
Right.
Hot Spring Water is like, we were recording. I think it was around 2011. We were maybe working on some new Stone Axe material, and Drew, who was vocals in that band, he wasn't showing up. But I'm like, I want to make a record that sounds like Crosby, Stills, and Nash, that sounds like Leon Russell, that sounds like Crazy Horse, Neil Young.
Right.
And when he wasn't showing up, all of a sudden we were still recording, and I finished it all, but it didn't actually come out for almost 10 years.
Wow. Yeah.
And so then we decided, okay, we're going to add another guitar player and go out and start playing. So over the last few years, even through COVID and stuff, we've been working on material and playing out live. And it is as what I explained, which is like a country rock, alt rock, southern. It's getting really southern now. There's a lot of that Allman Brothers dual guitar leads happening.
Yeah.
There's also some general alternative rock too, because I made a solo album in 2003 that was called Edith's Hook, and that was a real, like an alt rock album, like Built to Spill or Pavement or something like. I mean, I have a lot of that in my history. A lot of that lo-fi stuff. I really love that, because I was in a band called Tree People in the early '90s, and that was real Dinosaur Jr., Husker Du.
Right.
That's who we would get compared to, but if you listen to Tree People or Built to Spill, of course, because Doug went to Built to Spill from Tree People, you hear a lot of that indie rock thing, which was also thrown into my playing. That was influencing my playing back then. So, now this Hot Spring Water thing is also taking on not only the country rock, southern rock, alt country, but like this indie rock sound as well.
Sweet.
So, and that's another facet of the going through changes.
Yeah. Well,
throughout what we've done,
And the track itself is called Waltz Around the Changes too. So that's
Waltz Around the Changes. Yeah, this was recorded live. If you're going to show that video.
Yeah.
We just kicked it off. Sure. And are you doing this? Is this in a store or just a really nice studio?
This is in a music store in downtown Port Orchard called Mainline Music.
Okay.
Our drummer works there, and Mark, who filmed did all the filming and editing. He works there as well, and they were doing mainline sessions where they were having acoustic or like mellow artists come in and play live, and they were filming it, recording it, and putting it up on YouTube. So there's a mainline music channel that has a bunch of people. These are all local artists, and of course our area, the Kitsap County, Port Orchard, Bremerton area, has a huge amount of talent.
Yeah,
it's actually, I think it's uncanny. Actually, I think there's something weird going on here.
Yeah,
Because,
definitely.
You know, and this tune here this was brand new. We didn't think that we were going to be able to pull this off when we did this. We're like, yeah, let's try this and see what happens. And luckily, we got a version that we were able to use as a template to the studio version, which we're getting ready to record a proper studio album.
Nice.
In the next few months. But this whole performance is coming out on vinyl.
Oh, really?
In September. Yep.
Right on.
On Warrior Death Records out of San Diego.
Sweet.
Yep.
Yeah, that little solo section in the beginning was definitely CSNY in a lot of ways. Man.
There's on the records. There's tons of that vocal stuff going on. We do some 3-part harmonies live, which is something I've never experienced. I've always been the vocalist in almost all the bands I've been in. I've never been able to sing with anybody.
Yeah.
Or have to sing with me, I guess in this case. But it's nice to work on that kind of stuff. It's challenging for all three of us, and that's what keeps music exciting, is that challenge. Let's try something.
Yeah.
You know. And that's the, you know, if we get into Big Scenic Nowhere, that's one of those.
Well, yeah, that's. I think we're talk a little bit about Big Scenic Nowhere next, which is a completely different direction than Hot Spring Water, obviously, and it really an offshoot even from where Moss is.
It's a different thing for me.
It's completely
for sure.
like just super group. I would almost say it's more acidy in a way than stonery.
Yeah, for sure. It's desert.
Yeah.
Desert.
Yeah.
Which is not my thing. So my additive to it is something that takes it to whatever level. But yeah. This group that is that still.
No, we're just
Waltz still.
It's just us now.
Okay.
Yep.
So yeah, if we're gonna get into Big Scenic, that would have been the genesis of that. Well, it's two things. I did a play this riff video for Bob Balch from Fu Manchu.
Right.
Yeah.
He has that really cool side where people are playing. I did it for Lonely One, Kenobi.
Oh, nice. Okay.
And because he said that people have been, he says some of his students ask for Moss stuff, and I'm completely like floored by that they actually want to learn some of the riffs. So that's the one you choose. If you're going to choose a Moss song, that's the one that seems to be the most popular.
And for those who don't know, Bob Balch is the guy that in that Foo Fighters movie was doing the Learn This Riff with Dave was watching the Learn This Riff with Bob Balch.
That's on my play. I need to see that. I'm so happy you got that.
It's awesome. Cool. It's hilarious.
Yeah. But so I did that with Bob, and then that got Moss the Fu Manchu couple of tours.
Right.
So during the tours, we were geeking, talking about music, talking about this and that, and he'd seen me every night, and I'm assuming that's why he asked me to guest on that first Big Scenic Nowhere stuff.
Right.
And I showed up as a guest vocalist on the first EP, and then since then we've been able to make 3 records together, and we go into the studio, me and Bob and Bill and Gary, and we record for 2 or 3 days free-forming. Yeah. So even that first Big Scenic Note, so the second one, the first one I'm on, we went in there day one, and the first jam that we did is we would never even play together.
Yeah.
We played for 23 or 24 minutes. And so it kept going from there. And it's just people that know how to freeform.
Right.
It sounds easier than it really is.
Right, but I mean,
So
you're all
like, we were
professionals,
all,
right? So that's part
it's
of
not,
it.
and that that is true. But even Moss Generator, especially in the first lineup from with Sean and Scooter, we freeformed every night.
Right.
We had a freeforming section, so being able to go in and do that in Big Scenic was really not a big deal to me. Freeforming is something I'm used to and I'm into, but it was presenting things and being not so much the leader of the situation, which I always am in the bands. I'm the leader.
Right. Right.
Going in and there is kind of no leader. That was a really new experience for me and something I agreed to. I agreed to from numerous reasons. Who wouldn't want to be in that band?
Right.
Right.
With those guys,
so that's the cool thing, right? And then I'm putting myself in another situation that I haven't been in musically. So we went in the first time and recorded all this stuff, and then we made an EP and an album out of these jams. And so Bob and I will send things back and forth, and I'll do tons of editing.
Right.
In the studio, a lot of editing, making them sound like songs.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
And then Bob would hear it, he would have ideas, and we would float these things around between him and I, and then he would have Gary either come back in, or we float in his stuff that he did that day. And Bob and I have a really good relationship musically. We understand each other, and we generally like each other's ideas. Almost like 98% of the time, or even more.
Right.
Almost 100% of the time that we are getting down with each other's concepts on stuff. And that's also a special thing to have, especially when you're doing a lot of freeforming and doing music that's not. We're not getting together as an outfit. We've only played together twice. We did do a gig last year, and we had to get together and rehearse twice and play music that we had written 2 or 3 albums worth of tunes, but we'd never played them together other than those freeforms. And then, of course, we had taken them into the studio and turned them into songs. We had to learn them.
Right.
Because they were now songs and not just jams. And not just, I was taking pieces out and making new keys that they should be played in, or new segments that cutting and pasting and moving things around. So that was a serious challenge.
Yeah, I would imagine.
That's looking like we might do some. We have some stuff scheduled for possibility of touring.
Nice. Yeah.
We get lots of offers, but between Yawning Man, Fu Manchu, Moss, and other projects I have, we can't. It's hard to get us to be able to get together.
Yeah.
And it's really difficult because we also have to have days and days of, not days, but a couple of days of rehearsal.
Yeah.
Even though we probably could just go out on stage and freeform.
It's nice.
It's
nice to be able to lean on that real, that's a real special connection when you've got organic. 2 people that can songwrite like that, and take those ideas, and that's a rare thing, like you said earlier. And when you only get a X amount of time, that's advantageous.
Well,
and then
do you guys?
Bill and Gary are both from Yawning Man,
right?
And their whole sets are, a lot of the times are based on freeforming.
Mm-hmm.
Their whole idea is based. So when you got that, and then you got 2 guys that are like Bob and I are steeped in freeforming, but we also like structure and appreciate structure. We could probably get away with just walking on stage and playing it whatever came along, and that's not uncommon. Many bands have done that. But I'm a fan of structure.
Well, along those same lines, I mean, since you're playing with musicians that are not necessarily in your physical proximity, the guys in the desert, Jono being from Texas, do you use the internet for any of that kind of stuff? Do you ever do any kind of remote thing, or of course, sending your demos to each other?
Well, Bob and I do tons of stuff.
Yeah.
All the Yawning Man stuff is we only do the freeforming in the studio, and then we take that and work remotely.
Okay.
For the rest of all these albums we've done together have been done where we're not in the same room, other than the basic outline, which gets changed a lot. Right. It gets completely transformed. Now with Jono, there have been demos, and Jono has learned how to record himself. He's proficient now in recording himself. But I have a tendency to want to be standing there while drum tracks are being done.
Right.
Yeah.
And he understands that. I truly appreciate his exploration into learning more about his instrument and how to record it.
Yeah.
That becomes something. I mean, that's something that I appreciate, you know, as someone who is going to make music with him, and that also as a musician.
Right.
Because that is something that I do as an engineer, a producer, and a musician, is learn everything that I can about how to make that instrument, be it drums, bass, keyboards, or guitars, vocals, everything, to make it as easy to do as possible. Yeah. What am I doing to make this instrument the best I can get as quick as possible? Because I've learned over the years that perfection is not necessarily what everybody wants to hear.
Yeah.
I've learned how to, because some of the earlier Moss records, I've perfected into being stale records in my view.
Or sterile.
And if I could do them again, I would do them. If I could do them again, I would.
I'm glad you came back to that, because this is sort of what I was trying to go to when I was asking you about like how far away or how far along to get away from a piece to after you've mastered, after you've done the engineering. How far away do you want to get away from it and come back before you call it good? And I know that I have had that that perfectionism. It almost just derails it. Not only is it not necessarily what everyone wants to hear, it's not the moving, it's not as moving as just something that's a little less perfect, but it can also slow you down so much that nothing ever gets done. If you keep waiting for that one perfect take, I would sit there and just obsess over something, and 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 takes on like one line in a solo, and eventually just, give up and say it's good enough. And then if I get away from it for 2 weeks and go back and listen to it, I say, what the hell, what was the problem? What was I hearing that wasn't good enough, And it was the perfection that was killing the process.
Yeah,
sometimes it's just, it needs to be the way it is.
That was one of the takeaways I took from being in studio also was the engineer we were working with, Steve Jones on the Gunslinger record. Mm-hmm. His big thing was perfection is the enemy of good. Like we're going to do a few takes and you're going to get it at least close enough to where you want it in that moment. And you'll be able to come back later and listen to it and be like you're saying, what was the problem? What was I so uptight about?
Yeah.
So,
and that's something I've learned from a lot of touring.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because before that, when I was the perfectionist, where I would get upset, I would get upset on stage.
Yeah.
About non-perfectionist performances. I'm going to be honest, and I'm not like an advocate for alcoholism or whatever, but
there it is.
There it is, the Jaeger.
There you go.
Stage, if I have some drinks, I lose that perfectionism problem I have.
The inhibitions come off.
I generally only drink when I'm playing music.
Right.
I don't drink else. I mean, I've already started today because I had practice right before I came.
Right.
But I've learned, and that oddly enough helped me learn that perfectionism is not the key to like really good takes. Also, Scooter, the original bass player for Moss, would always be, dude, the demos are better than the album. Our demos are better than the record.
I've heard that a lot from different people.
So, because they're raw.
Mm-hmm.
So, starting with even Abyssinia, the record with Cat's Paw,
right.
And then the next record, Shadowlands, we were keeping demos. Like, there's a song on Shadowlands called The Wild and Gentle Dogs. And it's like an 8-minute opus. It's like King Crimson. It's kind of like Starless from King Crimson.
Yeah.
Jono had this warm-up drum thing that he would do, and I'm like, wow, let's jam on that. And it's him and I jamming. And it gets really intense at the end. I ended up using that as the drum take.
Nice.
And he was like, dude, I don't know about that. But I'm like, no, we didn't know that this was going to be.
Yeah.
You were playing, and maybe it's possible that if you tried this again when you knew what we were going to be doing,
Yeah.
that you wouldn't play it with the same intensity. Same with the title track from the Moss Generator album, Electric Mountain Majesty.
Right.
That song is literally, that's the second take after I even wrote it. That's the second time Sean, the original drummer, have ever played through it.
Yeah.
Well, and it's got that energy
and later
to it.
that
Yeah.
day, we were doing a demo, and I said, okay, I wrote this middle section. He got it, and it's like, oh, that was pretty cool. I got it upstairs to the studio, to the main studio, and started editing for the demo or doing the guitar tracks. And I called him later that night. I says, you got the take, dude. And he's like, you're out of your mind, right? He's like, you're out of your mind, dude. I'm like, no, you got the take because I can hear you playing things you would never do if that red light was on.
Yeah.
You would never do those things.
Yeah.
You would never take those chances. So, yeah, like you said,
It's kind of funny, like, going back to when I was 13, the first time, I guess I wasn't 13. I didn't get my first guitar till I was 14, but, the first time I plugged into my dad's tape deck and hit record, and that's when I realized I couldn't, that was when I got scared. And that never really went away. I still battle that now, but so you've got the two offshoots of that. There's the time where you hit record, except somehow it doesn't record, and you get a really good take and you're pissed.
Yeah.
And then there's the time that it's recording, but you don't think it's recording, and you just capture gold, and that's that moment, where like you took that chance because you didn't know you were taking the chance. Yeah.
Well, a lot of the times I notice that when I'm doing something in a recording session, either a demo or a final, I'll do a solo as a placeholder.
Yeah.
After I've done everything around that and I get to the solo, I'm like, I don't need to think about that solo. It's done.
Yeah.
That was what I was feeling at the time that this song, the inception of this song, rarely do I redo even vocals. There's so many records of mine that the vocals, because when I'm doing vocals, a lot of the times, I never write the lyrics and the vocals in the jam room.
Mm-hmm.
They come after the demo is finished, and then I write to them, which becomes a problem a lot of the times when I'm trying to play and sing them later because I didn't write them while I was playing guitar.
Right.
I didn't write the vocal melodies while I was playing guitar. But those original vocal tracks, the demo vocals, like even on the new Moss record, all the vocal tracks are demo vocals.
Nice.
I might have to fix a few lines that I wanted to change the lyrics on.
Right.
But I feel like that there's that energy, the energy of something that's coming out of you at the moment. And that's something that, like I said, I've learned over maybe the last, 10 years. Out of 35 plus years of making music and trying to make perfect music. I've missed a lot of opportunities because things weren't perfect.
Yeah.
When I was young, when Dreamtime was young, when 12 3 Dreamtime was young, and it was like 89, 90, we put out some cassette demos, and in 89 or 90, people were really paying attention to the Seattle area.
Yeah.
So we were getting like letters from major labels because we were getting write-ups.
Mm-hmm.
And all I had were these 4-track demos that now I listen to. I'm like, man, these are good. But I was too much of a perfectionist then. I never responded to any of these letters because I thought what I was doing wasn't good enough.
Right.
Not realizing that these people could hear you play with the boombox in the room and go, there's potential in that.
Right.
Yeah.
So I don't dwell on that fact that I didn't do that. I don't say my career could be different if I was recognized
And you can't.
in 1989 as a possible, it could have also ruined my love for playing music.
Right.
Being in, if I was in one of those, in a cog on a giant record label, they would be expecting things.
Yeah.
That could have ruined my outlook on
Right.
things. So I can look at it that way as now I can make music and make records on my own terms, and I'm not as recognized as nobody's really ever recognized as much as they want to be, but I'm recognized enough to be able to make records on a regular basis with someone else footing the bill and being excited about putting out a record by someone.
Right.
So I can see that as a success in my career.
I would definitely say
I
you're a
think so. I
success,
think so.
man. I mean,
I can see that as a plus and a positive thing that I can, sometimes I might get a little depressed about, not depressed, but, I'm looking at my thing going, man, I really wish I had more people that understood what I was doing or more people that got into it. You want recognition as an artist. But then I look at the wall that I have that has all the records I've ever made on it. It's massive.
Yeah, it is quite a list.
I've made all these records and I didn't have to pay for anybody, pay for it. And also people, I get messages, on a regular basis from people that enjoy what I've done.
Yeah.
Or they want to talk about the process, or they want to, I think talking about the process is probably the coolest thing. So being able to have a conversation with people like this is super cool to me, because that's what I want to do. I want to talk about the process.
That's awesome. Well,
Really glad to hear that. 'Cause
we're very glad.
We love it too.
In the interest of time, we're running a little longer than normal, but
yes,
I
told you I was.
this has been great, and we don't want to end it yet. We want to kind of switch gears a little bit and show your video for Funeral Suit, which is a solo project that you did. We're going to go ahead and show that video.
Can I speak on that?
Yeah.
Please.
Ripple Music, which is something that I've been involved with Poe and Todd since the inception. When they were still just like doing like writing, they were only writing that at a record level. We were talking then. They were reviewing Moss records. They were interviewing me about that kind of stuff. And through the years, we've stayed in touch. I've worked for Todd. I've worked for Ripple and done records on them. And they were doing this acoustic series. And they did Wino first, and mine was second. And for me to do this acoustic record was something that I can see now is a really, really neat thing. And it exercised a lot of demons that I had inside. Lyrically, like I was able to speak about things, and especially when they're in this acoustic format, the lyrics can be heard and understood. So that also helps when you're kind of exercising these things.
For sure.
That that if someone's listening, they can understand. Even though Moss lyrics do have a lot of the same concepts, they're hidden by loud instruments.
Yeah.
So it was really cool to be able to do this. And Hot Spring Water does play some of these songs because it's applicable in a softer rock environment.
Yeah, I could see that.
So anyway, and this video was also done by Mark, who did the Hot Spring Water filming of those sessions. He did this video, and then I dumped it down to VHS.
Nice.
To real. It's not a real. Actually, I'm not sure if the one I sent you is the VHS one. I think I sent you the one that's actually the digital one, but I dumped it down to some crappy old VHS. So it's real. It's not like an app.
Yeah.
Right.
Nice.
But the one I think I sent you is the real digital version. But yeah, this is about the passing, my father's passing, and having to buy what it meant to me and what it might mean in the future, and having to buy a suit.
Right.
To go
to a funeral.
Okay.
To this funeral,
That's
all right.
That's heavy.
Here we go. Funeral Suit.
That's a baritone.
I was going to ask you if it was a baritone, and I was also going to ask you if did you flip the video, or are you actually playing lefty in this?
That's wrong then.
Oh, okay.
I shouldn't be lefty. Although I'm left-handed. Yes.
Just take credit for it. You're playing lefty.
And we will have to have you on to talk more about gear as well, including the baritone guitar.
That's going to be a longer, a 2-part episode. I've got a lot of it.
For sure.
And if you listen later down in the track, it goes from this baritone electric to a standard tuning acoustic. crossfades into a different sound.
Interesting.
It's pretty trippy. Yeah. We play it in that standard tuning live, but of course I don't bring out a baritone.
Right.
A lot of baritone in my work lately.
And then, of course, there's the Mellotron.
The Mellotron, yeah.
Yes. And so we did talk about this earlier. I have two M400 vintage M400 Mellotrons, and they're my prized possessions. And I do have a modern Mellotron that they still make wonderful instruments that sound. All the tapes are from their library, so they're just amazing. But they have 100 sounds instead of 3 each.
Yeah.
So that's better. But this was done with two different M400 Mellotrons.
Yeah, and
they were both owned by Bob Rock. He produced those.
Oh yeah,
records.
yeah.
Yeah.
And you got those
the
up in
too. The payola,
yeah.
Eyes of a Stranger. That's a great song, man.
And you got
Speaking of new wave,
you got both of those. You were telling us the story earlier. You got both the Mellotrons after searching for one for 20 years or something.
Yes. Yep. I found them both at Guitar Maniacs in Tacoma.
Yeah, that's
Thanks,
awesome.
Rick. You were so nice to me. I traded a bunch of Nirvana records for him and some other bunch of gear.
That's awesome.
Yeah, this tune, because Hot Spring Water plays it,
Okay.
and it has a tendency to bring up certain emotions on stage.
I could imagine. Yeah.
Yeah. Because 3 of us have fathers that aren't here anymore.
Yeah.
You know, and Mikey, the drummer from Hot Spring Water, we actually play a song that his dad wrote that's a really, really amazing tune. And a song that I played when I was, when we were growing up, we rehearsed in their jam room that Mikey and Scooter's dad had built for all the bands to come in and play. He built a place for us to rehearse.
Nice.
And we'd have to jam with him, though, because he would get his Rainier night, Rainiers, and we would have to jam with him.
Oh, he built the space, right? It's it.
he earned the right to come up.
I can understand that. Yeah, that's awesome. That's really cool. Well, man, Tony, this has been wonderful having you on with us. All I can say is I wish we had more time to continue talking.
There's a lot to talk about. I appreciate you having me for even this long.
Yeah, we'll definitely have you again. We've got lots more topics that we want to discuss with you, from engineering, studio time, touring, all that kind of stuff, gear.
Touring.
So
yeah, I would love that.
Right on.
I like geeking out, as you say.
Yeah.
As people say.
No, we didn't even get to talk about the wall of amps yet. So
no, we didn't.
We have to.
Yeah, this is a small wall too. Like downstairs, it's bonkers.
It's but yeah, I think since we're pushing 10 o'clock here almost, we'll put a pin in it, as it were, and talk to you soon.
Maybe someday we'll make it up to Heavy Head and hang out with you in studio.
I'm hanging around here every day, man.
Heck yeah.
All right.
Right on. Well, thank you, Tony. Appreciate you. We'll see you soon.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate you guys.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Take care.
Take care. Right on.
That's awesome.
That was a very, very fun show. I love Tony. He's definitely one of my favorite guitar players and one of my favorite people, especially locally in the scene. I mean, you can't get any better than a guy like him.
Yeah, super easy to chat with, and just like I think that's part of we talked. I may have met him many years ago at a show that I was sweating for, and don't remember much about that day. But this is either the first or the second time Tony and I have chatted, and it's like I've known him forever.
Yeah, and it's been like that for me. I've known him for upwards of 15 years or more. So since day one, he's always been super easy to talk to, and he loves talking about gear and his journey as a guitarist, as a musician, as an engineer. Fantastic individual, just an amazing talent, wonderful guy. And extremely humble.
Yeah.
Also, my brother and I went up to see the Moss Generator reunion with the original members, doing the 20th anniversary of their first album, and he sees us walk through the door, and immediately he's just like, "Thank you guys! Oh, I can't believe you guys made it!" Like it hits him to see people care.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And the folks watching on Instagram, like, I don't have any way to prove this. You don't know that we didn't, tell him what to talk about, but we don't do that. We just, like, we tell him the purpose of Endorian Guitar Works backstage, and then we say we want to talk about some questions, and out of the result of that is, like, he came at us and talked to us about make music daily, and about that moment in life where you recognize that there's an urgency. There's an urgency to be creative, and tomorrow is not a guarantee. And what are you doing now? And
Right.
like everything he's talking about is exactly why we even started doing this.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
So I've been looking forward to that episode for a while, and happy that Tony was able to join us, and look forward to having him again.
Absolutely. We're gonna get him back on here, but
Definitely.
in the meantime,
Yeah, we have some great shows coming up too. Every show seems to be more and more fantastic than the previous.
yeah, this is only show number 10.
This is only show number 10, guys. We're definitely going in the right direction. I think.
Yeah,
with this.
I didn't anticipate having like when we started off on this journey. It was like, okay, we're gonna do some gear repair. We're gonna do like intrapersonal stuff where we talk about personal journey, and then we'll do an interview every month or every 2 months.
Maybe do a lesson here and
now,
there.
and now we might actually need to get back to doing some closed circuit stuff again.
Well, there
like
may be
6
a
awesome
place for
interviews.
some of that. Though.
Yeah,
We'll
it's
talk
true.
about that in a minute.
It's true. But in 2 weeks, July 26th, we have Eric Royals of Jasper Amplification out of Dallas, Texas.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I think he may have moved towns. It may not be Dallas anymore, but still in Texas, still making badass amplifiers,
Mm-hmm.
and we'll see him in 2 weeks.
Yeah, August 9th, we got Dead Hollows. They're going to come on their Olympia band. They're going to hopefully play a couple tunes for us, and just talk about their experiences as musicians in the Olympia area.
A week later, Endorian Guitar Works backstage will actually be guests on Victoria Fergoso's podcast, Tuesdays with Toya. We'll put more details about that out earlier, but it's, I believe, 5 p.m. on, Tuesday, August 16th.
And she'll be joining us on September 20th on our show at our normal time, 7 o'clock.
Yeah.
7 o'clock or 7. Now I don't even remember
Yeah, what's normal?
what our normal time is, because this one seemed totally to work good.
Then October 4th, a local Olympia builder, he usually made, what we saw at the Tacoma show was some really cool Telecasters.
It was super lightweight.
Yeah, the Olympia Guitar Company. Hey, Victoria's on right now. Can't wait. We are all very excited for
Yes,
this.
we are.
We have more ideas, too, that we want to toss around. Anyway.
And other
Spoiler
guests
alert.
that we don't have necessarily
Yeah.
locked down on specific dates yet, but we're working on getting as much content as we possibly can for everybody. And along that line, we are working on getting our Patreon up and going.
Yep.
So we will be moving some of our content to there after it's been up on our other social medias for a while. There will be some exclusive content once we get that running as well. So keep that in mind.
It will always be a repository of all episodes that we've done for Endorian Guitar Works backstage, plus premiere content that we'll add just for our Patreon subscribers. I don't remember the word.
Show producers.
Show producers. Well, there's that too. I made a decision a while back that every single episode that we do where we're interviewing somebody is going to stay for free. So you can get that either on Patreon, or you don't have to be for Patreon. But these people are giving us their time, and I'm not going to monetize that. It's going to be on Instagram. It's going to be on Facebook. It'll also be on Patreon. But the other episodes where it eventually goes into the vault, it'll be there along with extra stuff.
Yeah.
And then the Endorian Guitar Works store. We've got guitars out there. We've got apparel out there. It's growing. There's more stuff almost every day. So.
Get some and keep your eyes on it, because there could be more stuff on there tomorrow.
Yeah. Right now there's There is a Paul Reed Smith SE on there that's for consignment that had a big price drop recently. So if you need a PRS, I set it up.
There you go.
Yeah.
So you know it's done right.
That's what they say.
That's what I say anyway. This guy knows what he's doing. That's why he's doing it.
Shit.
Well, I guess that's pretty much it for us. It's coming in close to an hour and a half with this episode. I'm just super excited. I was so tired before coming in, and I'm kind of energized, but I'm probably going to crash as soon as I get home. But yeah.
Been drinking Monsters all
could be
evening.
that.
So.
I think it's more the Tony.
Yeah.
But,
yeah, me too.
You know, it was great having Tony on. It's great being here.
Yeah.
So, as always, don't forget, fret less, rock more. We'll see you on our next show. Take care, guys.